Juicy.
Gosh. All right. 1, 1, 2, 3. When you go into the shimmer, you don't come out alive. Or at least don't come out in one piece. It's Annihilation.
Mafia, wake up, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
You might come out, but with some different parts.
Right.
Like a worm in your belly.
Quite
that scene,
dude. Quite the scene. Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast, to the bargain basement of the Monster Podcasting airwaves, where two friends try to stay alive and stay connected by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, as we try to stay alive, we are discussing Annihilation. With me is my friend,
Kaboom.
Hopefully without a stomach worm, Alex.
Oh. Joined by my friend, who is either the same person I remember or not, but maybe a duplicate. I'm not sure. Eric.
This is the question. Have I changed from last week to this week, Alex?
I don't know.
Podcasting,
and neither do you.
Podcasting time is a little weird, as we found out the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it has been a little strange. Our schedules have been off. It's all been because you've been swapped.
Well, let's go ahead and jump in before I change my personality some more, Alex.
Oh, okay. Maybe it'll be fun one for a change.
Our 21st century monster movie miniseries continues with Alex Garland's Annihilation. Based on the novel by Jeff Vandermeer, Annihilation plays on the premise of an otherworldly zone with mysterious properties. The zone, known as the Shimmer, contains monsters that mirror reality, but feel slightly off. Does the movie, Alex, mirror any other movie for you? Or does this movie feel slightly off?
Yeah, I think I kind of making a fart sound when I said I think there. That was strange. I think I think the movie it does remind me of a particular film, and that would be Event Horizon. Not a movie I find to be particularly great. A lot of people hype that one up quite a bit. But, when I saw the worm scene in particular, I was reminded of probably a standout horrifying scene in Event Horizon, where it's generally a movie about people going into a black hole, and everyone kind of loses the plot. And not dissimilar to what we see here, where the world that they enter it starts slightly off and then becomes very off. And I have to say, while I'm watching this movie, unlike the films of a director like Jordan Peele, who gets so much credit despite pumping out what I find to be mediocre films.
We just got another 1-star review, Alex. It's all right, though.
It's okay. Then maybe they'll give me a 3-star review when I say that I think that Alex Garland is actually a visionary. His films are so different. I think they have just very heady themes that I think are unique and very special in a lot of ways. And I just find everything in this film to be remarkably interesting. And often there are elements in the film that I think that a lot of people would be able to debate. Now, I know that Nope in particular has some elements that are debatable. I won't disagree with that. But I find that his films are remarkably creative. This one in particular, even when I see the tones of this film and his just work as a whole, again, I've mentioned this once before to you, Eric. I do recommend his TV show Devs. It is absolutely phenomenal. But when I see the tones of his films, they stand out. They're very different. They're a little quirky, a little oppressive, sometimes filled with hope, sometimes with despair, but they're always analyzing the human element, which I think is very interesting and impressive. Even if, for this film in particular, I do believe it is actually far from perfect.
Well, I'm not with you on the Jordan Peele comments, Alex, but I'm definitely with you on Alex Garland. Though I have yet to see Men. I haven't seen that yet, and I am interested. And I'm interested in Devs too. What's that on? I need to watch that.
Devs was on FX, so it's on Hulu.
Ooh, nice. So I could actually probably check that out. That'd be great. Cool. No, I like that. Yeah, I thought Ex Machina was a brilliant sci-fi flick as well.
Yeah.
But I think Annihilation is my favorite of those two because of the themes and its implications, and I just really enjoy the setting here as well. In Event Horizon, I need to see that. I haven't seen that one all the way through, Alex. But what this film reminds me of is actually Andrei Tarkovsky's classic Stalker. In Stalker, there's a very similar zone, like the shimmer, and it's called the zone, that supposedly can grant you all that you desire. It's a slow burn, Alex, but if you have the patience, it leaves an impact and can make your jaw drop when contemplating reality as you scratch your head, right? Similarly, Annihilation's power is in its mystery. Right from the beginning, it sets up a framing narrative that makes you want to find out more. It has that element that I know you enjoy, Alex, where the film gradually unfolds its secrets in a satisfying way. It doesn't spill them out all at once or even really have a twist. If you pay attention at the beginning, you know that everybody dies, but it makes you want to find out how it all unfolds.
Yeah, and you do. You are invested in how it all goes down. You're right. Like it's even what makes it even more interesting. It's not like just everybody dies. Like she doesn't know what happened to two people, and then knows that two died. And so I think that that's a really interesting way to set up what happens, because at the end of the day, you kind of know what happened to the two she didn't know, but I mean, she really did not technically have any idea what really happened to them. Yeah, so I think a lot of that stuff's really interesting. But I did mention, Eric, that the film, I had a few problems with it, even though I do think it is very interesting. So before I get to the good, I do want to hit on a couple of the poor, I guess. And what my problems are with the film. I think overall, the movie might actually be a little bit long. It does feel like a journey into another world. I think it does that part expertly. But the journey at times feels like some of the weaker parts of something like Lord of the Rings. I'm not saying Lord of the Rings is bad. I'm just saying the weaker part of Lord of the Rings. And that's just a lot of navigating the environment in kind of an uninteresting way. Now, there's not that sense of adventure, like a rah-rah adventure in Lord of the Rings, which I think carries a lot of those moments. Here, it's just kind of us waiting for something to happen, because the environment is so haunting in a lot of ways, but even though it is, it's not quite interesting or tense a lot of the time. I think it actually slows down our middle third here a bit too much for me to give it a pass. Like, I actually did do the thing that usually kills a film for me and look to see how much was left. And when I did that, there was still about an hour left in the film. That being said, though, I think the film, when it wants to hit its moments with the environment and the world, it really hits those moments. It makes you like go, what the heck is going on? And I will talk about those later.
Yeah.
But when the time is there, the film hits it really well. My other issue is I don't really like any of the characters. I mean, I do kind of like Kane, but that might be more of a feeling of sympathy than liking. Like, I feel bad for the dude. It was cheaper for him to go on an alien suicide mission than file for divorce. Like, I feel for him.
Yeah.
But back to the characters, though, unlike something like Train to Busan, where I really care when the characters die, in this, I'm kind of like, oh, well, some of you I'm actually happy to see go. So there's not that kind of connection that I feel like I had in a film like that. And I think that is something that's kind of missing here, even if it's not quite, they're not the main characters of the story. Do you share any of these complaints?
You know, the thing is, Alex, is from the beginning of the film they're going to die. So with Train, it's a surprise, right? So it had more of an impact. This movie is much less about those side characters than a movie like Train to Busan, right? This movie is really focused on one character, and that's it. And that character is Lena. In a sense, in the fact that it's more focused on one character, it's more like World War Z than Train to Busan, right? But to focus on that character and a little bit about the film, I want to transition a bit. So will you indulge me, Alex? Can I do that annoying thing where I spill my fan theory that pigeonholes interpretation of this film? Alex, is that okay?
It's been a while. I'm excited. Yeah.
So, I mean, what this movie is it's all about a woman coming to grips with the multiple sides of herself. This zone, this shimmer, where she literally looks into the abyss of her existence and comes face to face with her true self, it's just a heightened version of an affair. The only alien thing here is herself. Her other self that she tucks away and refuses to face. That grief that she feels isn't that she's lost her husband. It's part of it. The grief that she feels is that she's lost herself and sees no return.
Yeah. And now what Sage coughing? Does that mean she disagrees with you?
She agrees. She just won't stop.
So I think that's really interesting, Eric. I didn't interpret it that way. Now I do see how you could, and I don't disagree because that kind of that does put some of the multiple flashbacks to the affair into some sort of perspective for me, and that combined with what I'm about to talk about a little bit is kind of what makes this film for me pretty exceptional. And just Alex Garland's work in particular. Now, again, I haven't seen Men, but I'm pretty familiar with a lot of his other stuff. And I'm going to finish on a more positive space because, again, I do like the film. And despite the lack of the characters in here, the film does, like I said a little bit earlier, understand human motivators. I buy the motivation of the characters that are all involved here. Yes, they're all broken people. But I could see why Kane would do what he did and why Lena is doing it and why all of these characters, even though I don't think all of them are fleshed out, why they're on the journey that they are, which is key because without me buying this, I really wouldn't have much of an investment in the story except for the world that's created. And I will say, I can't dismiss the world because, boy, the world that's created here is awesome. It's creepy, it's haunting, it's almost unexplainable, and it really builds off the opening moments with Lena during her teaching that she has about cancer and the way that it's corrupting everything around it. This is what I think the film is maybe even more so, or not more so about it. This is my interpretation of the film and what it's really about. And that it's taking that cancer and its way of corruption and how it just the way cancer works is it's cells corrupting other cells until it takes over. And that's the entirety of the shimmer and all of those who enter it. And what it does, it just corrupts everything. The haunting people like shrubs with maybe some sort of human genetic element, mutated bears and alligators that, upon touching something different, automatically corrupt even the memory of the individual that is killed or touched. And there's some crazy stuff and really crazy imagery. I mean, you can't even die in peace in this place. That one guy that had the worms in his stomach, we saw what became of him in that pool, right? Like, he's exploded almost into this big, colorful, beautiful, disgusting skeleton.
Very Last of Us.
Very Last of Us, right? And it's weird. It's just like complete corruption of this corpse. And we see that even in the ending of this film, where both Kane and Lena's eyes glow, right? So even though they have both escaped, now if this is the alternate Kane, but alien Kane, I guess we'll call him. Even though they have both escaped this cancer, right? They've been cured of it, essentially. It still lives with them. You still see it in their eyes, and the experience of what has happened, even to the alien version of Kane, it's going to haunt them because they're not the same people anymore. And so that's what I think it is.
No, honestly, and I think I don't think your interpretation really goes against my interpretation of the film, right? I think like they're part of the same in a sense, right? But yours is more of the biological aspect of this, which is that cancer,
and yours is the psychological.
More so. Like the biological aspect of it is cancer disintegrates, right? The shimmer in some interesting way duplicates and integrates. So, Eric, why am I calling you Eric? I'm talking to myself. I think I am duplicating myself right now, Alex. I have entered into the shimmer. But as I would argue, Alex, both of these characters are not the same, but both have been integrated in some way at the end of this film. So here I go again, right? Talking about these things. This movie is called Annihilation. So in my opinion, it's about the annihilation of the self, the disintegration of the identity that we hold so closely to our chest, whether that is the soldier, whether that is the stand-up professor, whether that is the loyal husband or wife. But on a more metaphorical or symbolic level, by going face to face into the conflict instead of avoiding it, and by fighting what feels like a demon within themselves, these characters, they actually integrate that part of themselves that was hard to face into who they are now. By the end of the film, they are a more truthful and authentic version of themselves than they were in even though that moment's ominous at the end, right? There's something ominous there. They're a more truthful and authentic version of themselves there than when they embrace after Kane returns home, right? Where despite this reunion, it feels completely off, right? Like there's something completely wrong with this reunion of characters that we never thought would see each other again. So this whole thing, it's multi-layered, right? And I think it's fun to contemplate and think about. This is one of those movies that you can have those conversations about, similar to something like Nope, Alex. It's something that is fun to chat about and think about theories for it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about Envy Plus.
Let's do it. Envy Plus today. What do we talk about? We talk about Squid Game. because she was
Yeah,
started.
we're really kind of like we're really timely on.
We're really with the top.
But we did talk about Guardians of the Galaxy very briefly, spoiler free.
Hey, honestly, we do. Yep, talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 briefly and the state of Marvel and maybe some like what the heck is Marvel going to do with some of the controversies that have been surrounding Marvel. Get a little bit into that. For those of you that are anime fans, talk a little My Hero Academia and geek out a little bit about that. It's a good conversation. One where really just, again, two friends catching up. That's over at patreon.com/MVM pod. Become a bargain basement at patreon.com/MVM pod. Let's get into our awards, though, Alex. Compelling character, who'd you have?
I had to give it to Kane. He's the only character I feel bad for at the very least. So I'm going to give it to him and maybe even his alternate version as well. But no, actually, no, I'm just going to give it to Real Kane. Because Real Kane was going through some stuff because of the horrible Lena. Okay? My boy was done dirty. Okay? And so he decides to probably do a very human thing and go probably neglect the thing that might need attention or just get away from his problems and goes and does something else. Now, in this case, it's a little horrifying.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of his work. Like, it's weird. He's not part of the army. It sounds like he's more of like a private military contractor or something because they're picked for jobs. So the nature of his work is very interesting too. And I kind of want to know what his history is because it does not seem to be proper military base, right? It's
and
very
he signs up for this, right? Like it's voluntary. And I just have a feeling he didn't have to go in the day that he goes in, right? Early.
Right.
So
he just did not want to be around Lena is what it really I think came down to.
Yeah. Well, my compelling character is Lena, who is what I would say is the central character of this film.
Two-timing hussy.
Yes. But that is there's obviously more to this relationship here than we get on screen, right? And that's what makes it honestly, it doesn't work without Natalie Portman. I was thinking about the comparison I made to World War Z and Brad Pitt's character Jerry/Gary in that film. And I don't think this movie works without a incredibly strong performance from Natalie Portman as Lena because the grief that she expresses in retrospect, like in the moment, you see the grief as grief for the husband, right? But in retrospect, there are a lot more layers to that grief that you can kind of start to see only after you know more of the story. Like that's incredibly powerful in the performance, like how you portray that really nuanced layering is really impressive. But that's what we get with Lena as a character is we get these different layers of her that start to unfold as the story unfolds. So she's definitely a compelling character to me. I've got to go with Lena.
Yeah. And you make a really good point about how further reflection makes the earlier interactions, even between her and alternate Kane, probably not dissimilar to how things really were. Because, they're sitting at the table and he's not talking. And she's like somewhat trying to engage. I mean, she is trying to engage, but that's probably how conversations were going, you know, once he found out as well. So it really interesting in how it ends up tying back to how things probably were anyway.
Yes. My most memorable line, Alex, to get into our next award comes from Kane. And this is a reflection that he has where, again, it kind of goes to this theme that I'm talking about where he says, I thought I was a man. I had a life. People called me Kane. And now I'm not so sure. If I wasn't Kane, what was I? Was I you? Were you me?
Mm.
It all goes into this relationship between these two, right? And this identity that they are almost scared to face. The dark side of themselves, if you will, that you're not allowing the other person to completely see either. So yes, like in a sense, they were that interconnected entity, which is again just another layer to this puzzle.
Mm. Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, yeah. That moment's like so horrifying.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is.
Mine's another horrifying moment, but for different reasons. Help me.
Oh yeah.
That bear talking, dude, so creepy. I loved it.
Yeah, very
so
cool.
good.
Yeah.
And without that bear, we wouldn't have been able to do this episode. Most likely.
Yeah, no, seriously. I know. We talked last week about Reign of Fire being a monster movie. This movie is questionable too. Right.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean Lena's the monster in here, right?
What about Can't Believe That Acting Award, Alex?
I gotta give it to Natalie Portman as Lena. I think she does a great job. Like you said, like this is kind of like the Brad Pitt, Jerry. I don't think it's to that level, but because I could see another.
I can too, but yeah.
I can see a lot of other actresses doing this role just as well. But Natalie Portman does a wonderful job just conveying all the emotions and the distraught nature of her character, because her character is beaten down, especially in the interview scenes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
She's pretty worn down. And then her interactions between her and Kane are really good as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give her the props. I think she was the one that she was on screen the most. I mean, it's kind of a default a little bit, but like I said, I didn't love the other characters other than Kane, or care about other characters other than Kane. So I'm gonna give it to Natalie Portman. What about you?
No, Natalie Portman I think is great. As I already made the case for, she would have been my pick for sure. But I'll go with Jennifer Jason Leigh as the psychologist, Dr. V. What was her name again?
Oh yeah.
Ventress,
I'm looking
or
it
something
up.
like that. Ventress.
Yeah. Which is almost a strange name.
It is, but it stands
for a
out.
movie like this. Like that's like a further sci-fi movie name.
Yeah,
Dr. Ventress.
Yeah. But I actually think she's a compelling character too. I know some of the other characters are a little bit more surface level, but she's got a little bit of substance to her and a little bit of a mystery to her as well. She's kind of that person in charge that isn't giving you everything. But you just always want to know, like, what's right there beneath the surface. I've seen Jennifer Jason Leigh play some other roles, and nothing is quite like this role that she gives us here, that makes you want to know more. It's not over the top. It's a very subtle performance. Her character actually doesn't change. And like her performance doesn't have to change too much, even in the dramatic moments in the film, because her character has a very set mission and a very set goal, even though we're not clear what that may be at all times. So I've got to give it to her performance.
Yeah. And also, a little shout out to Gina Rodriguez as Anya Thorensen. She gets her jaw ripped off, but also, and seriously, this is a very different character for her than I've seen in anything else. And I thought she did a pretty good job.
She had to. I mean, she had the bigger change, right? From like the fun, fun-loving effort to the kind of the psychotic.
Right.
I'm going to break this team up sort of vibe. Honestly, all the performances here are good. I don't think I'm with you a little bit on the characters. Like, I don't think the movie is not about those side characters, but those performances are all strong. And so
Yeah.
I have nothing to complain about there. What about your that's a good shot award?
I was going to say something like Natalie Portman on the beach originally, but when I was talking,
It's a great shot. Like with the fire in the background.
It's a pretty good shot.
That's an amazing shot. Yeah. There's a couple of shots right there that just look awesome.
There's
You're like, wow.
it's really cool looking.
As the lighthouse burns behind her. Oh my gosh.
It's good. But I elected to not pick those awesome shots, to pick a more horrifying one. And it goes back to the exploded body. That the corpse that is sprawling on the wall. I mean, that's the moment where they show something, and like we've already seen the video at that point, I believe. And yeah, no, we definitely have. But that's the moment where you see that and you're like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. Like you could see a worm infecting somebody, right? And like doing what it did in the video. But when you see that, it's this moment. It's like so colorful too, right? With all those like bright blues and yellows. Like it's really like a pretty image. It's just when you drill down into it, you see all the horrifying elements in it. And I think it's so otherworldly because it doesn't even really make sense when you think about what is going on there. And that's really the illustration of like things here are much worse than even that video showed.
Right.
But
right. No,
what about
cool.
you, Eric?
Very cool. So mine is that scene, the table scene between Lena and Kane. They're holding hands.
Oh, yeah, the glass.
And there's that glass of water. And their hands are... There's literally like a prism. They talk about the prism in the shimmer. But there's literally a prism in the glass that makes their hands feel otherworldly. And that never shows a clear connection between them. There's just so much in that little shot inherent there that I just find it fantastic. It's incredibly clever. It's just chock full of interpretation. Like you can make of that what you will. But I thought that was incredibly brilliant. I love that little easy shot. There's nothing like technically amazing about it, but what a great idea to kind of show a couple of ideas and bring them together thematically in a shot. Really cool.
Yeah, and don't they reuse the glass distortion later?
So the glass is a common theme, right? This water, right? Like it keeps coming back up in a couple different ways. So yeah, I mean, it's a recurring idea for sure.
Okay. Awesome.
Motif is what you might call it.
Yes, very cool. All right, Eric, let's hear your unique award.
Well, my unique award goes to the Oh Shoot Award. And that is when they watch the video and see Kane cutting a flab of skin off the guy's stomach to reveal the moving worm and then grabbing the worm with his hand.
Worm grab, dude.
I'm like, what?
It's like they're playing with it.
And they all freak out.
So weird.
So weird. So weird. Yeah. So that was the Oh Shoot moment.
Yeah. Mine is the men would literally go on a suicide mission instead of going to therapy award. And that goes to Kane. We're going on the mission.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, that gets us into our final thoughts and tiered rating. I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
I don't think last week with Rain of Fire, I had this passionate plea about the sincerity of Rain of Fire. Yeah. Here with Annihilation isn't the same way, right? It's a film that I enjoy thinking about. It's a film that I think is incredibly well made. And it's a film that I have no huge problems with. For me, that makes it actually it ends up in my lower Godzilla tier, actually, because it's a film that sticks with me and makes me think about it far beyond the film's end. It does have sort of that transcendent quality where it may not be as in depth as a film like I mentioned, Tarkovsky's Stalker, and how it treats the shimmer, but it certainly presents a picture that is closer to a 2018 version of Tarkovsky's Stalker, which I really appreciate. And so I think this is in that upper tier for me, a film that I would recommend to most people, but especially audiences that enjoy that unfolding of a mystery. Maybe fans of Lost, for example, that want to see that unfolding. And so I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed this film for the most part, Alex. I wasn't sure what you would think about it. If this might have been a little too pretentious for you, but I'm glad to see in a conversation that you found some moments of enjoyment for sure. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely did, and this conversation has made the film even more interesting for me, which is always a pleasant surprise whenever we have that happen on the show. I gotta say, despite my dislike of, or not dislike, but my apathy, I guess, towards a lot of the characters, and dislike for Lena. Despite those elements, and despite I think dragging a little bit in the middle third, I think the film is so interesting, and even in that drag and where it drags, it is hitting some big moments really well. The cane reveal, the cutting of the stomach, and then we get the bear chasing that's following and tracking them. There's some excellent moments there, but it's the opening moments with Lena and Kane that are really interesting, and the final act I think is really stellar and bizarre, and raises even more questions about what's going on with, like you said, your favorite character, Dr. Ventress. What's going on in those final moments of hers, right? Where she almost becomes part of this like alien ship organism thing, right? Like I don't know what's going on in those moments. And I think it is saying something, right, about that character. And that's probably another discussion we could have as we try to figure that out.
The fates of these characters is a whole other discussion.
Yeah. And I think that's very interesting in how they end up, more so than I think even the characters themselves in a lot of ways. But because this film, I came into this episode ready to give it a high Gamera tier because of my other issues in the film. But I think because it is so interesting and there is so much to say about it, I think I'm going to give it a low Godzilla tier again. Nice. This is a really stellar film that I can't recommend to everybody, but I feel like a lot of people should see that have it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I'm with you, Alex. Yeah, go watch Annihilation if you haven't, especially if you got to the end of this episode and haven't seen it yet.
Oh, man.
Go watch it.
Just for the record.
Spoilers.
That means Reign of Fire and Annihilation are both Godzilla tears for me.
I love it.
I better rate it the same.
So what's next, Alex? What's our next film?
Our next one is actually a movie that got a trailer, I guess, as of people listening, probably a week ago. It got its second movie. The sequel finally got its trailer. We're going to watch The Meg.
Oh, are we? Oh, man. That's
Yeah,
coming
the
up
Meg
next
is
week.
next.
Oh my
and,
gosh. Will the Meg lay an egg?
And the Meg too. Oh,
Or
oh, this setup.
well, I have no idea. Will the Meg lay an egg, or will it scare me so bad I have a little dribble down my leg, Alex?
Yeah, I don't know about the Meg. I hope that it has a leg to stand on. And I hope that Eric likes it so much that he fawns over it, and Jason Statham Chatham. The end.
Hey, we get one good rhyme every 100 episodes, so it just wasn't our week. It's all right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We'll bring it. We'll nail it next time. Or
yeah,
the
we'll
100 times
nail
later.
it. Yeah, next time's the one. As always, thank you for listening to Monsters vs. Men. You can leave us feedback on this episode at mvmpod.com or email us at mvmpod@gmail.com. Become a bargain basemite at patreon.com/mvmpod to receive weekly bonus content, including special reviews, interviews, and host chats. And if you can't join at this time, a review or a share always helps. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Basier, John Freeman, and Michael Herndon. Special thanks to our wives, Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Cell Block B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, our Instagram connector, and you, the listener, for listening. Until next time, don't
put your hands on that guy's worm
and try to stay alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
I didn't even mean it that way until after I said it. And then I was like, oh, this is even better than I imagined. I think I kind of like making a fart sound when I said I think.
So, Eric, why am I calling you Eric? I'm talking to myself.